Well, howdy friends, Brian Flechsig of Mad River Outfitters and the Midwest Fly Fishing Schools, and welcome back to another one of our knot tying tutorials. Today we're going to take a look at a loop knot called a Duncan Loop. You know, we've shown you some loop knots before. We've shown you a perfection loop. We've also shown you the non-slip loop knot, often called lefty's loop. Today I'm going to take a look at a knot that tends to be a little bit better for the heavier monofilaments. This is a knot we use a lot in the saltwater for say 24 up to 30 plus thousandths in diameter. Just a side note, many of you know that I like to use Maxima Clear. Also, we like to use the Cortland Mono leader material, but if you do like Maxima, you know that Maxima Clear stops at 24 thousandths. Of course, I need thicker than 24 thousandths for a lot of situations, so we often switch over to this Rio saltwater mono. Little secret, it says made in Germany. It's the exact same stiffness. I strongly believe this is Maxima Clear, just marketed by Rio. So anyway, it's available in the larger diameters. I use it a lot. It's really good stuff. Again, I believe it's Maxima Clear. The Duncan Loop tends to work a lot better, and there's a couple of places that we use the Duncan Loop. First and foremost, you all know that we like to cut off our loops, especially for technical casting, especially for sight fishing. Anytime I'm contact sight fishing, I'm of course going to cut the loop off the tip of my fly line, and I'm going to snell a permanent butt section on there. Well, we constantly hear from folks, well, what happens when you cut back, cut back, cut back? You don't want to be snelling your butt section onto the tip of your fly line all the time, and I agree. When I snell a butt section on, it's essentially permanent. So you can, if you want to, you can put a Duncan Loop in the end of either your butt section or your mid section, and then just loop your tippets on. That way you're never ever cutting into that butt section or even your mid section. It makes life super easy. And although we don't like loops in the tip of the fly line, they really impede your cast. Having a loop down at the front end of the leader is not at all a problem, not a deal breaker. So I've been doing this a lot. In fact, we were just tarpon fishing about a month ago down in Florida with our great friend Flip Pallet, and he showed us a really cool tarpon leader formula that we've got coming up in a video here for you shortly. And he used this Duncan Loop to attach the butt section to the Bimini class tippet. So stay tuned for that. So anyhow, this is a super easy knot. The first thing you do is you form a loop, and you don't form a closed loop, meaning you don't cross. You don't cross this as such. You don't go over top to form the loop. You just form a loop by laying the pieces side by side and parallel, okay? Then I take that tag end and I come back towards the loop. So I'm circling back this way towards the loop and then go over. And now you've just formed a new loop by doing that. You've formed a new loop right here, and you're going to come through 3 or 4 times. I'm going to go 4. On the really heavy stuff, you might only go 3. Okay? And then I've got my little tensioner here, my knot tensioner. It's just one of those command clips. I buy them at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever. And you're gonna now seat this knot. Okay? And I seat it just by pulling on both pieces. And now, to set the size of your loop, okay, to set the size of your loop, I'm going to pull on the standing end. And that sets the size, the length of that loop. Oh, one thing I forgot. Oh, much better. Now I can see it. So now, once you set the size of the loop and it's where you want it, you're going to grab onto the tag end. This is a rare knot where you pull on the tag end of the knot. And now I'm going to seat this knot by pulling on the tag end. And I give it a few seconds to seat appropriately. And there you have it. You have your Duncan Loop knot, which is a beautiful, beautiful little loop. And now with this loop, you can come in and you can trim that tag end just absolutely flush to where that's not going to grab any vegetation, any weeds, anything. As our buddy Flip says, if you're afraid to trim that tag end perfectly flush, you're not confident in your knot tying. Now, another thing that you can do is to get this loop to lay flatter or more closed, you can actually grab it, the tip of it with your teeth, kind of crimp it a little bit, and that way that loop is a little bit more closed, and when you do this loop-to-loop connection, it's a lot cleaner, a lot smoother, not as open of a loop. But that is the Duncan Loop, which you can also use to tie on a fly. Same story, same knot. It's a great way. It's a great way to tie a loop knot, because as many of you know, tying a loop or a non-slip loop with this stuff is pretty challenging. So I'm going to go ahead and put my fly on my knot tensioner. If you're in a boat, you can probably put this on, one of the latches for the hatch or something like that. But when I'm at home on my kind of workstation, I've got these they're called command strips. They're designed for hanging things, but they tend to work pretty well for tying these knots. So there's my loop, and then I'm going to come back towards the fly, and now I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 times through that second loop that I formed. Also, friends, remember, especially with big, heavy mono like this, you always want to moisten your knots. Moisten them really well before you cinch them down. And if you don't love doing that, Flip Pallet's special delivery fly line treatment does a really good job of lubricating a knot before you go to seat it. Makes a really big difference on how that knot seats and how well it holds also. The only thing I can tell you here is just make sure that the length of your loop is not longer than your hook shank. If it is, that hook can get fouled into this loop. So you don't want it to be longer. I like it to be somewhere around maybe 3/4 of an inch, something like that, assuming you're using a large fly. If you're tying this in heavy monofilament, you probably are using a fairly large fly. And then again, I'm holding the standing end, and I'm going to cinch this knot by pulling on the tag end. Pull it tight, and then I can come in and I can trim that very, very close. And you get a wonderful, wonderful Duncan Loop Knot, which, if I'm not mistaken, was created by Flip Pallet's very good friend Norman Duncan. A perfect loop knot. I think we've shown you Homer Rhodes also before, and just over the past couple years I've taken to using this Duncan Loop Knot as opposed to that Homer Rhodes knot any longer. I mean, the Homer Rhodes is good. I just think this Duncan Loop is a lot better, and it's certainly much better for tying that loop in your butt section for attaching mono to mono. So there you have it, friends, a Duncan Loop Knot. As always, we appreciate you watching. You can check out all of our knots in our knot tying playlist, as well as our casting videos on our playlists, and just all kinds of videos. So if you ever have any questions, you pick up the phone and give us a call here at the shop, or shoot us an email. We answer all emails, no question. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. That really helps us out. Hit the like button, that makes us feel good. And be sure to hop on over to madriveroutfitters.com and register to receive our monthly newsletter. That way you can keep up on where we're going and what we're doing. So as always, oh, and don't forget to watch this video and then watch this video here. And stay tuned, because we've got a lot more coming at you.